I'm Shelby Zitelman, and I was really excited when Monica asked me to speak on this panel because I graduated 2 years ago from Oregon in 2007, and so I thought that it would be interesting to hear my perspective as undergraduate students because I'm new to the industry, and I think that my experiences could be a bit more relevant. So I graduated with a degree in entrepreneurial management, which was kind of unconventional at working since everyone seems to be focused on finance. But the reason for this was both of my parents started their own companies. And so I was raised in a very entrepreneurial household, really liked the excitement of potentially owning my own business one day, and so wanted to cultivate skill sets that I could learn the best ways to go about doing that if I did decide to make a decision. I got involved with an early stage venture capital fund under the management of Ben Franklin Technology Partners, which is a seed investor in the region. They're focused on economic development. So I had the opportunity to work in the field of venture capital, which is pretty unheard of for someone out of undergraduate because typically you need a deep finance background. But I had the opportunity to use this as a way to gain exposure to the startup process, to the entrepreneurial ecosystem in this region. And so my experiences are that speaking of an early stage investor, primarily in information technology space and limited exposure to the life sciences. So I recently read a statistic that said that only 10% of companies are venture-backed. And there are a couple of reasons for this. One is that a large majority fail. They don't get to that stage. And another reason is because of the business model. A lot of businesses just aren't not worthy, but they don't really qualify for venture capital funding because a venture capitalist wants to see that he or she is going to make a return on his investment. So there are companies, I want to start a restaurant, that's not necessarily applicable for venture capital funding. Or the scalability of the business. You can have a great website that's generating a little bit of revenue and keeps you going, but a venture capitalist is not necessarily going to be interested in that because they're not able to scale it up or ramp it up to a higher level. So there are a variety of different types of funding that you could look for that are not venture capital. Primarily, as Jane was alluding to before, you can start with friends and family and say, I have this great idea, I need a little bit of cash. You can develop, sort of an equity breakdown system, say you can own 20% of the company, I'll give you X shares. Honestly, all of this is arbitrary at the beginning. You could say each share is worth $1,000 and you only have 5 shares in the company. It doesn't matter at the beginning. You could approach banks, you could take out a loan. Right now, as other Jane was alluding to, it's kind of hard to find financing from banks, especially for a first-time entrepreneur. So make sure your credit is good, because credit markets are tight in general. Another source of funding is the angel community. I worked at Ben Franklin Technology Partners. I worked for 2 funds. One was called Emerald Stage 2 Ventures, which was focused on IT, and the other one was called the Mid-Atlantic Angel Group. And the angel investors are ex-entrepreneurs, ex-businessmen who love to get involved in financing real estate companies. And so why this is great is they typically don't take as much equity, but they really enjoy working with you through the strategy and the nuances of your business, so also act in the role of an advisor or a consultant, for your thing. Then there are venture capitalists, and there's also another type of venture capital called corporate venture capital. So for instance, if you're dealing with molecules or research and you're trying to patent a drug, you could potentially approach a large corporation such as Merck or Pfizer that has a pool of cash that they're looking to allocate to research projects like that instead of doing it in-house. So those are a variety of sources of funding. So Monica asked me to speak to what venture capitalists are looking for if you get to that stage and you deem that venture capital is a source that you'd like to go after. The first and foremost is venture capitalists look at the team. A business is comprised of its people. They want to know that you know what you're talking about, that the other members of your team complement your weaknesses, that you're able to work together to bring this product to market or to bring your existing, product line to the next level. They want to see that you have the experience and the ability to execute. So frequently, entrepreneurs tend to come out of a career in an existing company and have an extensive knowledge within their field. Not to say that there aren't the Sergey Brins of the world who didn't necessarily work for 20 years before spinning out his company, but for the most part, venture capitalists want to see that you know what you're talking about. They also want to see that you have attention to detail. So before you approach a venture capitalist, they want to know everything. You need to have an extensive business plan where you've identified all the areas of your business, not only the product, but also the markets, who you're selling to, who you're potentially selling to, what the competition looks like. I don't know if you guys have gone over like quarters by courses, but that's a business plan. And they also want to see your budget. They want to see how are you spending your money, how are you going to be spending my money potentially, because I want to know that my $1 million isn't going to pay for your $600,000 salary, So you need to be very stringent, and especially at the beginning, bootstrapping and paying very close attention to how you're using your money is essential. Some investors actually invest in milestone-based funding, in that they'll say, we'll give you $100,000 every time you reach a certain point to ensure that you're staying on track with your plan. And they also want to see that you're able to work with them. I mean, you kind of make the bed that you sleep in. Is that the So because they're an investor and their money's at stake, they want to know that you're going to be open to their suggestions, that you're able to work together, because it's an important relationship. Right now, as Jane was talking about before, there are a lot of problems and limitations to access with funding, especially in venture capital. I'm going to retreat back for a second. Another thing that venture capitalists are looking for when it comes to the financing side of the business, so this was all the operations that I was talking about before. When they're looking to fund a company, they're looking at what valuation you've placed on your company. If you approach a venture capitalist and you say, I want $1 million, but I'm only going to give you 1% of my company, a venture capitalist is not going to be very interested. So they want to know what price you've put on your company. They also want to know who the previous investors are. With Prescient, Jane mentioned that the new investors were not happy with the previous owners. So they'll want to know who else has skin in the game, and there might be potential conflict with that. Also, what the funding structure has been to date. They want to make sure that their investment is protected, that they're not going to face future dilution. If other investors come in later, that their equity isn't going to be, taken down to 0.5%, for example. And they also want to see how much money management has put into the company. Not that you necessarily need to put your house on the market, but they want to know that you also have skin in the game, just to align incentives and for compensation purposes. They want to know that you guys are all working towards the same goal and that you have something at stake. So now I'll go back to the problems of financing, especially for venture capitalists. One of the things for an entrepreneur when approaching a venture capitalist is because money is so tight right now, venture capitalists are able to bring down the valuation of your company in negotiations and take potentially a larger piece of the pie from the entrepreneur's perspective, because you guys want cash as quickly as you can find it, and so I think that there's more bargaining power on my side. So that's just one thing to pay attention to. Another sort of cash flow issue that entrepreneurs are facing right now is not only is it harder to find funding on the venture capitalist or bank side, but it's also difficult to find funding on the side of customer spending, because a lot of companies need to focus on their operations, and so they're not looking to invest in a new technology to expand, their productivity. They're being much more selective in how they're allocating their cash. So it's also hard to line up potential customers and get cash that way. And also, if we go to the beginning stages of looking for funding, friends and family, and I don't know if you guys are nervous, but I'm kind of nervous with the state of the economy. My parents are cutting back on certain spending. Your friends and family aren't necessarily going to write you a $10,000 check because they believe in you. That's where the sales comes into play. You need to convince them. But the point is that friends and family money, which used to be more plentiful when times were better, is not so good. So that's just also something to pay attention to. And not that it's impossible. Clearly, there is financing available. You just need to conserve cash as much as possible at the beginning, really bootstrap, and also simultaneously be able to maneuver all these different avenues and all these different options for financing your company.